If you're thinking about hiring an SDR, there is a cost a lot of founders and sales leaders are not aware about before making the hire. In this video, I will discuss why hiring an SDR may or may not be the best option for your B2B company if you're looking to generate more qualified pipeline. My goal here is not to sell you the idea that hiring an SDR is a bad thing or hiring an SDR is a good thing, but rather present the argument, show you the pros, show you the cons, and why hiring an outbound agency may be a better option for you. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. All right, so getting into this now, before we make any kind of argument on whether or not hiring an SDR is a good thing or hiring an SDR is a bad thing, it's very important that we start with the financials because this will play a very large role. Hiring an SDR, it depends. Some take 70K, some take 60K, some take commission, some don't take commission, but a reasonable place to start is 50K base salary. On top of that, 15 to 20% benefits, payroll tax. Sometimes there's commission. They might take commission. It depends entirely on the job post and the requirements. The software, dialer, sequencer, CRM, data tools. If they will be doing cold calling, paying for the cold calling software. If they will be doing cold emails, there's also that side of the cost. Ramp up time before fully productive. Not exactly a financial cost, but time. You don't know if this person that you'll be hiring will be effective from day one. They might only be effective on month 2. So there's these things, right? Management, training, coaching, call reviews. So dedicating time to getting this person up and running. Now, I've listed all these things as a cost of hiring an SDR, right? You're still paying them through that entire ramp up period. So by month 2 or 3, you could easily be $5,000 to $15,000 deep before you even know whether or not the hire is working. And the point about the ramp up, the time it takes for the SDR to perform well is actually very important because a great CV does not necessarily mean that they'll be, the best performing hire that you had or like a top 1% SDR, right? You have to consider the fact that they might take some time to get used to your system. A great CV doesn't tell you how someone performs inside your business. Maybe they will struggle with the offer. Maybe they cannot generate enough conversations. Maybe they leave 6 months in and you restart from zero. That's a significant commitment before the economics are even proven, right? So there is this element when hiring an SDR. Now compare that to hiring an outbound agency, right? If you're hiring an agency, there is no salary, no benefits, no recruiting, no software stack to build, no 90-day ramp up. There's no day-to-day engagement. So hiring an agency is actually in the word. They're like an agent, right? They are operating independently and they don't operate like an employee. So this is, something that's very important. Obviously, when I'm saying, there's no salary, they do charge retainers. They could charge a performance-based model. But the point I'm trying to make is that there is a difference in the compensation model and how they operate versus hiring an SDR. And by the way, an outbound agency, they live this world. They breathe outbound, right? They do outbound every day. They send cold emails every day. They probably send cold emails for themselves as well. So if they are a good agency, they have already run campaigns. They know what works. They know what doesn't work. They already have a proven framework they can apply to your business. You cannot say that for every SDR, right? Have they run dozens of outbound campaigns before? Do they know what works? Do they know what doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? How long will it take to train them? So just to give you an example, I personally have booked over 350 meetings. I've sent over 1 million cold emails. So if I'm taking on a client, it's going off of previous success. So I already have a proven framework almost when I'm taking on a client. That's how I can move quickly because my role is to deliver a done for you product. And if I know already what works and what doesn't work and how I can apply my learnings to this specific client, then we can move quickly, right? And a lot of results-based agencies, they operate this way. They sell you the product of meetings, right? The meetings is the actual product. They sell you the done for you package because they know that's ultimately what you're looking for. But when you're hiring an SDR, you don't have that guarantee, right? You're paying for their time effectively. And if they're taking commission, performance-based, right? But with an agency, they're already packaging it in a way where it's like, okay, I'm selling you this thing, which is a done for you model with the goal of getting you meetings. And a lot of agencies do performance-based models as well. On top of that, if an agency shows you proof they've actually done this before, like, hey, we've sent this many emails, we've booked this many calls for clients, here are campaign screenshots, here are results, here are invoices paid, it's evidence. It's additional evidence that maybe an SDR does not have. By the way, I'm not saying an SDR is completely inexperienced. A lot of SDRs do have experience. They do have experience in working at companies. They do have experience making cold calls. They do have experience at closing deals even. But I'm just presenting the argument because a lot of the times companies and agencies, they will come to you and say, yes, we have generated results and here's our proof, especially the good ones. This option of hiring an agency can technically be less risky, because if there are agencies who are offering trial performance-based pricing, at that point you really have to think twice, like, do I want to hire an SDR and pay this person full time? Or, I can just take on this agency, who offer a performance-based trial, performance-based option. Then if we like the results, we can move on to something more long-term. For example, we have a test before you commit package for potential new customers. It's a paid trial. They can try it out for 2 weeks. And if they like the leads, then you can move on to something long-term and move on to a longer-term relationship, right? But you cannot trial an employee. Once you hire an SDR, you're already committed. You're paying the salary, onboarding, management. With an agency, you can start small, right? You can test the strategy on a set number of leads and a set market. You can see if people are replying. You can see if the right people are interested. You can see if the meetings are actually booked. Then you can decide whether or not you want to scale it. And this matters a lot now, even because, founders are really thinking about, do I need to add additional headcount, right? It's a fixed cost, somebody to manage, a hiring decision. You might have to think about a potential replacement if they're not performing well. And if you look at the numbers, right, hiring an SDR, even on a financial basis, it's more, right? And using an agency, there's that independent element where they might offer a retainer, they might do performance-based pricing, they might do one-time trials. But overall, on a short-term basis, typically, it's a lower amount versus hiring the SDR. Hiring the SDR, there's the recruiting and onboarding process. An agency also has that, but their onboarding process is based on something they've already applied to previous clients. So to summarize, I know I went through a lot, but to summarize, hiring an SDR can make sense when outbound is already proven and you want to build the function in-house. By the way, when you have an SDR, the big benefit, I'm not saying that hiring an SDR is a bad thing. This is what I said in the beginning of the video. When you're hiring an SDR, you have that element of control, that element of, you can oversee the employee, you can kind of see how they're operating, all these things. Using an agency can make more sense when you're still testing your ICP, messaging, targeting, or the outbound process itself. An SDR is a full-time hire. You need to recruit, onboard, manage. Like I said before, keeping this person at a level of performance where you believe is acceptable and is actually good. Agencies can let you test outbound without immediately committing to anything long-term. The model itself can reduce the upfront risk and help you get to market faster. So it's a very quick way, proven framework, you already did it before. The agency model can reduce that upfront commitment and help you get to market faster. At enough scale, bringing outbound in-house may become more economical. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't hire an SDR. A lot of top performing companies hire SDRs, but it's about the intention, and it's also about, is it more economical? Is it better just to hire an agency, run our outbound campaigns, because there's that independent element to it? So the point here is not that agencies are always better. It's more that hiring an SDR shouldn't automatically be the default way to find out whether or not outbound would work for your business. So that is pretty much it regarding the video. If you're looking to hire an agency that can run outbound for your market and run outbound on your behalf, we are currently offering one-time campaign trials without any long-term commitments, so you can test out the leads for yourself before moving onto a long-term commitment. There is my booking link below where you can book a one-to-one call. But apart from that, hope this video is valuable and have a great day.